and taken care of and used. And one of the ways that we hope to use the house is for the bottom of the front house to become a public contact facility for us, for it to be a way for us to talk to visitors that are coming to the Sand Canyon Trailhead, and also eventually to be a place that we could have public events on occasion. And we have recognized that we have room for a small parking lot there, maybe 3 or 4 cars, enough for a handicap spot and an employee and a couple of visitors to park, but not really more space than that. And so we're trying to figure out how we could provide access for the folks that are going to come and see us at the Lamb House. And it certainly would be possible for us to put a couple of trails kind of through the slick rock from the 2 existing parking lots from the one to the east that was created by the county and the one to the west that was created by the BLM. We could have a trail that kind of wandered through the pinyon, juniper, and the slick rock. But we've been talking about the possibility of trying to create something that was more evident and more easy for visitors to use. And the closer of the 2 parking lots is the one to the east, the one that was created by the county. And we're wondering about the possibility of using the county right-of-way, and the county right-of-way through that area is about 50 feet wide, so it goes a little ways off the road. But using the county right-of-way to create a flat trail that goes from that eastern, there you go, as it shows on the screen, from that eastern parking lot parallel to the road to the Lamb House. And so the reason I'm here today is to, number one, just see if in general that might be a possibility, and then number 2, if it is a possibility, what avenue we should use to formalize an agreement to be able to do that moving forward.
So just from my perspective, a formalized agreement, I think that, because I remember when we approved that, I think it was in 2019 for that parking lot to be created down there to the west, because we wanted to get the people off of that road too. County Road G, everybody was parking for like a half a mile before you had your parking lot and before we had this one done, and it was a big safety issue for all of the people traveling or parking. So I don't know if John had created some kind of a formal agreement, or if we just approved it and had our road department go down there and build that parking lot to the east or not. So we could definitely look at that, and I don't know about a formalized agreement. I don't remember John doing one back in 2019, but I wasn't doing day-to-day stuff with BLM a whole lot back then. So I can certainly look through our files and see what's there. I can get with Kim and see what kind of agreement, if any, exists, and then maybe touch base with you, Ray, and we can get the process rolling. I think it probably makes sense to have at least something in writing, just to memorialize that. And sort of what I would envision would be some sort of grant of permission for BLM to use the right-of-way. But I mean, obviously, that's going to always be at the county's discretion. I mean, we need to maintain those right-of-ways for our use first and foremost. And so if at some point in time we needed to do something with that, then we would certainly want to reserve that right. But we can certainly get that ball rolling. I'll look in our files and see what we have. And Ray, I'm sure I can get your contact information. I don't know. You guys probably have counsel too, so we can figure out the channels to start going through. And this is just for like a walking path?
It's just for a walking path.
From the parking lot to the actual Lamb House? It's not very far.
No, it's not very far. It's less than 100 yards. It's not a long distance.
Yeah, it's pretty short.
And we would ensure that there was separation between the road and the walkway. And if you guys had opinions about what that separation should look like, we can work with you on that. The other part of this request, and they're not connected, if the answer to the first is yes, we're going to go forward, but the second part would be, we would be interested in the possibility of lowering the speed through that area. Currently it's 40, and with the 2 trailheads, the Lamb House, the sight lines being what they are, we'd be interested in talking about the possibility of reducing the speed down to 30 to make it a little bit safer for folks traveling through there.
Question?
Well, I think we should have to look at and see if there's an issue for
Yeah.
do any kind of safety Is that all BLM land there?
Outside of the right-of-way, yes. On the north side of the road, it's all BLM. Until you get past the second parking lot, and then there's private.
I'm trying to think of what we have there for signage too. I know that we put signage for the parking lot, but I'm not sure we didn't reduce the speed at that point in time, but gosh, even some more signage might help. So
Sure.
yeah, I think that's a good idea. We'll have Rob go down there and take a look at it and see see what we could do as far as that little short distance. It's probably, not over a half a mile?
Yeah, less than half a mile. And we talked with Rob about the idea of the right-of-way, and he didn't have concerns, but we told him that we're going to bring it to you.
Okay. All right, so we'll get with Rob and have him go down there and look at that and make sure that, everything, I think it is pretty wide. And then we can just move forward from there.
Yeah, there's a couple of rocks that we'd have to shave back, but I guess we have some experience with that based on building the other parking lot. But that's the hardest part from our perspective.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all that I have, unless you have questions for me.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. All right, Nick.
Yeah. Commissioners, glad to spend a part of today with you. Thank you for your time, certainly. Just a couple of updates from the forest to provide. Earlier we had in the season we had Spruce Creek fire. That was at 5,699 acres, all kind of hemmed in by our road networks, and it was a really beneficial fire. It turns out like when you have them at about 70 degrees of about 10 miles an hour of wind, you don't see too many dead trees out there, and we kind of keep fire where we want it, out of any canyons and off of any private land. So that went really well earlier this year. And then, kind of on a related note on fire restrictions, as Sharon, we kind of had our first abandoned campfire of the year. So not too much knucklehead behavior out there, just a little bit at the moment. But, really we've seen kind of limited initial attack following these storms. Haven't quite had too many lightning strikes on Forest Service land to respond to. But we are seeing those indices rise a little bit, kind of looking towards maybe end of the month going into fire restrictions. But obviously be in communication with county partners and everybody else as we move forward, and kind of seeing how each kind of storm plays out between now and then. And then a couple of planning efforts that we've been working on. We've the Cottonwood Road categorical exclusion project, and that's kind of the road widening and like replacement of a bridge at the bottom of Cottonwood Road to kind of make that accessible for log hauling. So we've worked through State Historical Preservation Office on getting compliance with that, because there's an historic bridge at the bottom of that road that we need to mitigate. And so all that's going well. We're kind of about ready to sign that decision, but currently don't have money to fund the kind of $1 million price tag on Cottonwood Road project at the moment. So just for awareness on that. And then there's a couple that we're starting up the, pre-scoping, so very early in the NEPA process, kind of on our just conceptual project planning. One of which is looking at our Ponderosa Pine prescribed fire decision that we've been implementing. That decision only allows us to do hand line or UTV, ATV drag line to kind of make those areas that we kind of want the stop of the unit to be for prescribed fire. And we use a lot of roads, a lot of natural features, but there's times and places where we need to make that boundary. And so what we're looking at is going back into that decision and allowing the use of bladed equipment, thinking along the lines of like a masticator with a blade, a skid steer with a blade, and especially looking at up against private, certainly where we don't want that fire on the other side of the line, up against canyon edges, knowing that if we get fire across into a canyon, we could have a potential long duration event. That's not what we want. And so the planning process there would give us through the NEPA process permission to use bladed equipment for those prescribed fire lines. So just a little bit of comfort more for the implementers that I've got out there doing it, and for myself as agency administrator on our prescribed fire program. And then relatedly, we're kind of starting looking at the idea of a mixed conifer prescribed fire project. So we have a lot of our Ponderosa pine belt that we've gone through the planning process for prescribed fire, but there's a good portion of the district that we don't have authority to use prescribed fire as a tool for vegetation management. And so kind of starting at the very early conceptual phases of what might that look like. And the thinking there is just kind of giving us some areas that we can have a little bit of fire history on the landscape, so if we get a start where we don't want it on a bad day, we have pieces across that landscape that it can tie into. And so it's another planning process that we're looking at starting up potentially kind of in the fall of this year. And then the only other project to make you guys aware of, we are working with the state on a Thunder Mine project, kind of limiting the amount of flow of water kind of getting out of that and towards the West Mancos drainage. And so kind of doing some abandoned mine remediation in the Thunder Mine area.
So I do have a question for you.
Sure.
How long has it been since they've not been using bladed fire line instead of using just a hand line or a drag line with an ATV?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not effective or efficient. I mean,
Largely, we've been going after areas where we have roads as our boundaries.
Yeah.
And so it just that works at the beginning, but you kind of hit a point where it's like we have 6 miles of line to complete, and it's like we could spend all summer having a crew go out there, or we could get it done with a dozer pretty
yeah,
efficiently.
in short order.
Yeah.
So how long has it been?
I believe that decision dates to, I want to say 2018.
Wow. Okay, well, that makes a lot more sense to use a bladed piece of machinery to get that done instead of a bunch of guys on Pulaski's and McLeod's.
We are on the same page.
Side-by-sides and ATVs
Yeah,
with spike
no.
arrows.
And there's, I don't want to say that this is exactly the reason, but I do think that there is a health of my employees aspect here too. If you
Yeah.
get people on a ATV that can, patrol the area efficiently and effectively, that I'm not putting people out in that smoke and sitting there all day. And so
Absolutely.
there's a employee aspect to this too.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. Questions?
No.
Well, good luck with that.
Thanks.
I hope you get that accomplished because that makes a lot of sense.
Certainly, we'd welcome the commissioners to provide a comment once we get to that point.
Okay.
It'd make
Perfectly.
it a lot easier to get water back in there to fight something that got out of hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. All right. Seeing no others, we will move
Thanks,
on for discussion of an ordinance permitting the lawful possession of firearms in government buildings in unincorporated Montezuma County. And Ian, I'm going to give this one to you.
Yeah, so this is an ordinance that will be something that, if you guys want to sign it, will respond to some recent legislation that was passed by the state that enacted a set of laws that basically said that you can't conceal and carry on government property. And it's a little bit more narrow than that, but that's the general premise of the bill. What it specifically deals with is government chambers where elected officials are housed, chambers where there's public meetings taking place. And so there is an opt-out provision in that bill and in that legislation. And what it does is it allows county governments to, in essence, opt out and allow for firearms to be carried, obviously with a conceal and carry permit in the locations that the legislation prohibits. I've written this resolution fairly broadly to cover buildings owned by Montezuma County. There is a provision in here that talks about, obviously it's going to be limited by lawful orders by individuals who have the ability to issue those orders. So for instance, the courthouse, that's a county-owned building, but the chief judge and the court administrator, they've got authority to issue orders as to that courthouse, and they have. And so this ordinance wouldn't necessarily prohibit them from issuing orders in their courthouse that would prohibit carrying the firearm. Basically, they can prohibit carrying firearms in the courthouse. Also, obviously, the jail's a county-owned building, and the sheriff has discretion there. So, so that's what this is. And I think the language is fairly straightforward. If you guys have any questions, you're certainly free to ask, but this is what it is.
I don't really have any. I think is all this does is just basically leave it the way it is right now.
Yeah.
So their restrictions are their restrictions, and everything else is status quo.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think certainly this commission has conveyed to me, and I tried to convey in the resolution that, ultimately, I know that this commission is very in favor of Second Amendment rights, and I know you guys are also, committed to allowing the lawful carrying of weapons, and so I tried to convey that in the resolution as well, and I mean, that's what it is.
All right. Any questions?
I don't have any.
Nah,
Okay.
better shut up.
Perfect. All right. This will, has what it does with our dealing with 24-131, and we'll move forward.
Okay.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Ian. Okay, Robert. We're going to talk about diapers.
I'm presenting this on behalf of Public Health. This is it's a renewal of the grant funding for their diaper program. It does, Bob marked it as including a quarter of an FTE, but really what it is it includes 120 total hours or $4,000 of general staff time. It's not one person's position. It's sort of when they get all the supplies, it's a little bit all hands on deck and whoever's available to help do it. And that kind of operates almost as a stipend to help pay for that. And then the rest of the grant is just supplies, diapers, wipes, and cream to hand out. So it's a pretty straightforward. And if there's any questions.
And this is just an ongoing grant that
It
we've
is.
had for multiple years too, right?
It is, yeah.
I don't have any questions. I mean, questions? You're looking at
No,
me like,
I'm not,
you're looking at me
I'm
like you
keeping my
have a
mouth shut.
question.
I can get in real trouble with this.
Okay, Commissioner.
Just
The one thing I didn't say, it's funding provided by the Colorado Department of Human Services. So that's it.
These are baby diapers, right? Okay.
I don't think we discriminate.
Well, given the age of the commission up here, I was beginning to have doubts. It
So,
just depends. No, shut up.
okay. All right.
You're gonna get
Seeing-
yourself in trouble again.
Seeing no further questions at all. Thank you, Mr. Dobry. I appreciate it. And gentlemen, we have come to the end of our agenda for today, for our workshop.
Probably a good thing.
Pretty short and sweet, so I will let you become, I'm not going to say what I will
Okay.
say. I'll be quiet. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.